Have you ever been told that you're too sensitive, too emotional, a know-it-all? Perhaps you've been picked on for stating the obvious. What labels were you given before you were even old enough to understand who you were? For many of us, these labels weren't just words. They were flaws that needed fixing. In my culture, sensitivity is seen as a liability. My mother feared that my softness would make me a victim in a hard world. She once casually mentioned a cure, a rumored initiation ritual. The task was simple, and it was brutal. You place a branch of long, sharp thorns between your legs, and you walk. You walk until the thorns tear your skin. You walk until you bleed. But here was the real test. To pass, you cannot cry. Success was measured by your ability to hide your pain while you bled. Thankfully, it was only ever a passing thought for my mother. However, for decades, I still pruned who I was. I tried to fix my flaws. I buried the girl who felt everything. I tried to be normal. I thought my value was my ability to hide who I really was. But what if the thing we've been told to fix about ourselves is actually our greatest gift? I was introduced to a framework called Intangible Drivers, developed by Flowcess. To demonstrate this, imagine you and I buy identical cars from the same dealership on the same day. A year from now, will your car look like mine? No, it won't, because we drive our cars differently. In this analogy, the car is your brain, and the driver of the car is your intrinsic motivation. It is what you are motivated to do regardless of the situation, and this is how you gain energy. Some people are motivated to perceive, others to teach, and others to be compassionate, naming 3 of the 7 intangible drivers. We are a combination of 2 intangible drivers, making up our intention and our action. Our intention is the effect we want others to experience from us, and our action is how we bring about that effect. A more common term for this is your authentic self. My intangible drivers are compassion server. I gain energy by doing whatever is needed to bear the emotional pain of others, resulting in helping them grow. No wonder I burnt out as a CPA. There was no way for me to gain energy because numbers don't feel pain. Do they? And I can't help numbers grow. At least not legally. When we don't understand someone's drivers, we label their behaviors. We call perceivers Captain Obvious or pessimistic. We call teachers know-it-alls. We call compassionators too emotional or too weak. We put thorns between their legs and tell them to stop being who they are. In September 2024, I took this framework into a young offender center. I was there to teach a mental wellness program called Instant Impact, developed by Flowcess. There was a 17-year-old boy there. Let's call him Leo. Leo was draped in a thick cloak of resentment. His assessment showed that his intangible drivers were server-giver. Server-givers are motivated to offer ideas, advice, solutions, or even a gift to fill a need. But in a cell, what is there to give? Leo shot down everything I said. Every session ended with, "I don't give an F." He was piercing me with his words, trying to see if I would break. One day he asked me, "What trauma do I have that made me not give an F?" Knowing he's a server-giver, I said, "Your trauma made it unsafe for you to give. You've been trying to give your whole life, and the world threw it back in your face. So you quit." His eyes widened. The armor cracked. On the second to last day, I showed a video on synaptic pruning, a process that begins at around age 13, when the brain retires neural pathways it doesn't frequently use. Leo mentioned that at 13, life was good. And, you guessed it, he didn't give an F. I looked him in the eye and I said, "If life was so good, what are you doing here?" He glared at me and snapped, "You're annoying." I didn't take it personally. Instead, I told him, "The greatest gift you can give me is giving an F." The room went ice cold. The guards moved closer, thinking he might lunge. Instead, he went quiet. I knew I had reached his soul. On the last day, the guards warned me that he might lash out. Instead, he asked tough questions. And for the first time, he didn't say that he didn't care. He said, "I wish I knew this when I was younger. I'm actually getting along with the guards now." A week later, I saw him at a mentoring night. He noticed me, did a double take, and a massive smile broke across his face. "Oh my gosh, it's you!" he exclaimed. We played a board game together. This dangerous young man, this offender, spent the next hour patiently teaching me the rules. He even suggested moves I could take that would make him lose. His personality hadn't changed. He was just a server-giver who, upon seeing the need, finally felt safe enough to give. This isn't just a heartwarming story. It is a data-driven reality. When we stop treating labels as problems to be cured and start treating drivers as needs to be met, the world changes. Flowcess works with school staff across the US who support students with emotional and behavioral disorders. What you're seeing here is real data collected by a middle school counselor putting intangible drivers into practice in an EBD classroom. In the earliest years, 2016-17 and 2017-18, the environment was intense and reactive. Among fewer than 10 students, there were up to 48 seclusions and 21 restraints. That averages around 5 to 6 crisis interventions per student per year. However, when the staff started connecting with their students through their intangible drivers, something remarkable happened. By the 2018-19 school year, seclusions and restraints dropped to 0, a 100% reduction. and they stayed at 0 all the way through 2021, 2022. Suspensions followed a similar pattern of change. In the early years, there were 20 to 28 suspension incidents and 47 to 66 suspension days. By the 2019-2020 school years, suspension days dropped by over 60%. And by 2021-2022, suspensions were minimal to nearly eliminated, even as student enrollment continued. Consider one specific student. In the first 3 months of school, he was physically restrained 88 times. That is nearly once every single school day. However, when the staff understood his intangible drivers, once they stopped putting thorns in his path, in the next 6 months, his restraints went from 88 to 0. We didn't change the kids. We changed the translation of their behavior. The very sensitivity my mother tried to toughen out of me was the only tool sharp enough to cut through Leo's armor. If I had become a tough, unfeeling woman, I would have missed him. I would have seen an offender instead of a server-giver operating in an unhealthy thought process. We've been taught to treat our labels like thorns, to hide them, to professionalize them, to bury them in the name of fitting in. But what if your sharp observation might be your ability to see details before they become problems? What if being a know-it-all might be your brilliance? What if your sensitivity might be your ability to help others grow through their pain? So I ask you again, what if the thing you've been trying to fix about yourself, the thing you believe makes you not good enough, is actually what makes you extraordinary? Thank you.